Hey guys, welcome back again. Thanks so much for joining me. I very much appreciate it. It's your host again, Paul. Another episode of MMA After Dark. Before we get started, tap the like button, hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it sure means a whole lot to me. Thank you also those of you that have already subscribed. I appreciate every last one of you out there, the handful of you that have already subscribed. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. I just wrapped up my previous video talking about the great Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval fight, UFC 317 this last weekend. Had some time to dive back into that and see what was going on out there in social media and what people are saying about that just crazy banger of a fight. And for this video, we are going to be talking about the fight that immediately followed that one. Alexandre Pantoja once again defending his flyweight championship against KKF, who was very much outclassed in this fight, top to bottom. It's funny because this fight went to the third round, but in my head, I felt like it was over before it even started, because KKF just, he had nothing for Pantoja. He was not able to pose any kind of a threat to him on the feet, and certainly not on the ground. I mean, and we know when you get on the ground, you're just in Pantoja's world, right? And ultimately, that's where he finished him. With the rear naked choke from, he had the body lock from the back position. Does what he does. He stretched him out, sunk that in. KKF definitely fought it for a while, spirited effort, but what are you going to say? Pantoja does what he does, and maintains his greatness, maintains his title by rear naked choke. I'm just looking at the stats here. Round 3 and minute and 55 into the third round. But you know what was interesting though about this fight, and also when Pantoja fight Kaya Sakura, when Pantoja goes in these fights, there's always this kind of idea about Pantoja that, he can be had on the feet, right? That he's a wrestler, he's a grappler, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, and that's all he has to offer. I'm not going to say he's a crisp boxer or a crisp technical striker. He's not. I mean, would you expect a guy with a nickname the Cannibal to be one? Right? I mean, but he fights like one, right? He marches right into you, and he will get into a firefight with you to the point where you're pushed up against the fence. He'll work some sort of a takedown with a body lock or a single leg, or a body lock from front position, body lock from back position, and kind of sink you to the ground or do a trip or whatever it might be. But he is certainly not afraid to mix it up on the feet. And for those of you out there that have still found a way to disrespect Pantoja after everything he's accomplished, and I know it took some of you quite a while to kind of come around on Pantoja, understandably so. I know that Brandon Moreno is a beloved fighter, every right to be. He was a beloved champion, so when he won the belt off of him, hurt a lot of people's feelings. Not mine. I'm a Pantoja fan, have been for a while, but I understand. It's hard when some of these guys beat some of your other guys' favorite fighters, and it's just kind of one of those things about the sport. But if you are under the impression that Pantoja is still one of these guys that avoids firefights, that avoids trying to mix it up, that avoids getting punched, please do me a favor and go back and watch that Brandon Moreno fight. Because while there was a good amount of time spent on the ground and in grappling exchanges and reversals and takedown, whatever you might, whatever you want to call it, man, both guys were mixing it up on the feet. And Moreno landed some heavy shots. Pantoja landed some heavy shots. He actually knocked Brandon Moreno down on the ground and sliced him open with some elbows, pretty nasty elbows actually, in that fight. And here I am talking about an old fight. I'm supposed to be talking about the KKF fight, but it just had to be said, because while some of you have kind of come around on Pantoja, he got some hate for a while. or being labeled as a guy that just wrestles, or a nut hugger, or it's just not the case, and I don't know how you can't appreciate his game, his all-around game. He just keeps marching forward. But ironically, in this fight, it didn't really matter because KKF did not really land a whole lot on him. Let's look at the numbers here. So round one was spent mostly on the ground. Pantoja was credited with 4 minutes and 45 seconds of control time, 1 minute and 4 seconds control time into the second round, 1 minute and 31 seconds into the third round. In the striking department, KKF is credited with landing 8 of 13 strikes. Pantoja, 7 of 13. Total strikes, though, 29 of 38. 1 of 2 takedowns. And when we look at the body kicks, that is something I wanted to mention. Pantoja really strings together well these kind of, I don't want to say sloppy or ugly, but very cannibal, zombie-esque kind of combinations where it's just kind of this kind of two-punch tight kind of boom, boom, and then immediately followed by this kind of like really, I don't want to say off balance, but almost like one of these like kicks where he's like, it almost seems like he's going to put his hand down and throw the kick, right? But they land with power. They really do. He landed some of those good kicks like that against Kaya Sakura, and then he landed a nasty body kick that bruised up KKF really bad. And so again, he's a guy that will get into a firefight on the feet. But really, the story of this fight was that Pantoja's bag is just too deep, and his skills on the ground are just next level. They really are. They are beyond, from what I've seen at least, because there's a lot of jiu-jitsu black belts in the UFC. Even within that group, there are levels, right? Not every black belt is going to be the same level as a Charles Oliveira or a Pantoja, right? His jiu-jitsu is just different. It really is. When he gets you down there in that body triangle that he just loves to get in there, man, you are in his world. And someone gave the example of, like, I think it was Era Hawani gave the example of it's like an anaconda almost when he gets that body triangle on these guys. And you think it's just being used to just maintain position, but he's just sucking the life out of you. He's sucking the air out of these guys, making it hard for them to breathe, hard for them to just maintain that position. It's not just a position where you just get down there, oh, okay, cool, well, he took my back, and, but I can just kind of, as long as I can fight the hands, I can survive. Like, no. Those things can slowly suck the life out of you, particularly when you're locked in there so tight and you're just trying to contort your body and move and find a way out of that position. Slowly suck the life out of you until he finds that choke. And that's exactly what he did. In KKF really only had one path to victory, pretty much in this fight. He was going to have to avoid being taken down, which I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen. I certainly didn't. Or he was going to have to knock him out, hurt him. Need I remind you, Pantoja still never one time been finished in the UFC. That's an incredible feat in itself. Never been finished. Never finished on the feet. Never finished on the ground. Not one time. That alone should tell you that this guy is something special. Let's take a look at some things here. Okay. So, Pantoja's last fight, you have to go all the way back, last loss, excuse me. you have to go all the way back to 2020, about 5 years ago, almost to the date, July 18th, 2020. Has a loss to Askar Askarov, interestingly enough. Lost by unanimous decision. After that, he goes on a tear, which is now an 8-fight win streak. Within that, 4 title defenses. Let's talk about that. And I'm saying this because I'm trying to stress the point of how impressive that is, that this guy's never been finished by any of these guys. So let's go back 1 or 2 fights previous to that. Another loss on his record against the former flyweight champion, Davison Figueiredo, who was also in his own right a dynamic champion. Loses that fight by unanimous decision. Bounces back with a win over Matt Schnell. Gets a knockout, actually, punch in round 1. Finishes Matt Schnell. And then from there, he fights Askar Askarov, Manel Kape, Brandon Royval, Alex Perez, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, Steve Erceg, Kai Asakura, Kai Kara-France. If you want to go back a little bit further, he has another fight against Brandon Moreno. Never been finished by any of those guys. And most of those guys, he won, he beat. But, I mean, how impressive is that? That even a guy as dynamic as Davison Figueiredo was back in 2019, when he was just like the guy, right? That was right before the following year he won the belt off of Joseph Benavidez. Just absolutely just beat him just to pieces. I mean, these are some killers, guys. I mean, Manel Kape, a lot of finishing ability. Brandon Royval does have some finishing ability. Brandon Moreno absolutely has finishing ability. Kai Asakura, I know, there was a lot made of his transition from Ryzen to UFC, but certainly in Ryzen, definitely had some finishing capabilities. So, it's very impressive. KKF, we saw him finish Steve Erceg. It's very impressive that he's never been finished. And not only that, with this title defense, collected his 30th professional victory, with now a record of 30-5. And, I know I'm talking about a lot of things other than the Kai Kara-France fight, because, I mean, at this point, I mean, what can you say? What can you say about Pantoja? The only thing that I think is working a little bit against him currently is the fact that he is now 35, and we know how this goes, guys, right? At 35, certainly 36, and almost never 37, unless you get into the, light heavyweight divisions. Those guys seem to have a longer shelf life. They rely less on athletic ability in most cases, but we start to see them lose a step. But the crazy thing is about Pantoja is he seems to almost get better fight by fight. He seems to learn and reflect on each fight and think, okay, as good as I was in this fight, what can I do? How can I get better? And I love his interviews when he stated that him and his coaches, Marcos D'Amata, and all the guys at ATT, they have a mindset of, okay, you just defended the belt, but now when we get back into the gym on Monday, you're the challenger. You are not the champion anymore. You're the challenger. And that might sound a little weird, because it's like, I mean, if it were me, I'd be like, no, I'm the champion. I'm the man. I'm the guy, right? But it's this mindset of like, no, it's a new challenge. There's a new challenger coming in, and you are also challenged. You are the challenger to maintain your belt. You are now the challenger. And that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard a guy say that and just embrace it. I've heard guys be like, oh, my coaches are telling me this, my coach is telling me that. But to really internalize the mindset of, no, I am the challenger. when you're coming off of your 4th title defense and just a dynamic run, 30 pro victories, never been finished, now in the GOAT conversation, flyweight GOAT conversation, most guys, that's going to go to your head just a little bit, right? But not this guy, not Pantoja. Man, he's impressive, and he's so good. He's so good. He's a humble champion. He is a guy that was more than willing to let Joshua Van get in the cage with him post-fight and do the face-off. I talked about in my previous video. Gotta love the Bushido, the respect between the two, right? And he's saying, yeah, no, bring it on. He's not dodging the challenge. He's not saying, oh, well, he hasn't, proved it yet. I mean, I don't know how you can make a case for that. Even he just beat the #1 contender, but it certainly hasn't stopped some champions from avoiding certain guys like this. Certain guys like a young guy, like a Joshua Van, guys that have just been surging, but maybe arriving a little later to the party than some of the guys that are already in the top 5 that have kind of been fighting to maintain that position, fighting for the next title fight. I mean, he could have said like, well, I know he's the #1 contender, but I'd really like to rematch with Moreno, or I'd really like to, fight Minnow Cop, or but no, he said, yep, this is my guy, this is the guy, and just had the nicest things to say about Joshua Van also, and about how he deserves it. And it was interesting. He in one of his interviews, he was talking about how Joshua Van is 23, and he made a comparison to himself. At 23, I was washing dishes in a restaurant, and this guy now is about to fight me for the championship. It's incredible. So he deserves everything that he gets. He's got that kind of everyman to him as well, right? And I've met him personally at one of the UFC fan events. Obviously not long enough to have some sort of crazy in-depth conversation, but man, it's never fun when these guys that you just are big fans of, you meet and they just turn out to be absolute jerks, right? But just nicest guy in the world. Saw him again later at the mall, walking around with Gilbert Burns. Again, just the nicest guy in the world. Family guy, a guy that just is shooting for greatness constantly, right? And you have to respect that. That's going to be an interesting matchup. I talked about it a little bit in the previous video. I'm going to talk about it a little more in a separate video, what that potential matchup could look like, paths to victory for both guys and so forth. But again, Pantoja reigns supreme. And we talk about, this is the last thing I'm going to say in this video, but we talk about a lot about pre-fight things and press conferences and weigh-ins and face-offs and everything like that. And there was so much made of the KKF. I don't know what you call it, so I'm not going to disrespect it by trying to figure out what it's called or whatever. But the what he does, right, where he's sticking his tongue out and he's doing the thing. Again, I don't know what to call it. I don't have an issue with it, but in their face-off, when he was doing that, and he's done that with a lot of guys. He did it in the when he faced off against Cody Garbrandt and a few others. And most of the guys, most of them, they're not quite sure what to make of it, so they'll kind of like smile and just kind of like, oh, smirk and just kind of like, oh yeah, like okay. But what does Pantoja do? He's got his sunglasses on, right? And KKF's doing the thing. He takes those sunglasses off and he takes 2 steps closer to him. It's like, yeah, okay, and what? And what? He's kind of developed a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder too, a little bit more of like this, like, I'm the guy, which I like that because he deserves it. I like that. And it's not too much to the point where it crosses like lines of like, cockiness or anything like that. But yeah, he outclassed KKF. What more can you say? What more can you say? I don't know that there was a whole lot KKF could have done to win this fight. I mean, yeah, you could talk about takedown defense, but I mean, I'm sure he worked on that a lot. But when you're dealing with a guy like Pantoja, you got to be special. You got to be special. When he fought Brandon Moreno, he was able to get him to the ground, control him with the body triangle, almost worked a finish, almost worked a choke, right? But Brandon Moreno was able to work out of those positions a lot. But Brandon Moreno's a pretty good sized flyweight. But Brandon Moreno is special. He's a special fighter. He is very similar to Pantoja. In that fight, they were neck and neck going into that 5th round. But, you know, is KKF on the level of Brandon Moreno and Pantoja and even guys like Royval? And, you know, I don't know. I think this matchup was more of a product of him capitalizing on a quick knockout of Steve Erceg, who had just fought Pantoja for the belt, and the stars kind of lined up for him because he kind of, you know, did a little MMA math himself and said, oh, well, look, like Erceg took Pantoja 5 rounds. I just knocked him out easily, so I'm going to do the same thing to him. I mean, if it works out for you like that, sure. You know, if I were him, I would have tried to push that narrative also, because it got him a title shot. Does he get a title shot again after this? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. He's a tough guy, clearly got the power in the hands, but there are levels. There are levels, and I still think right now, and I want to be clear before I say this, Joshua Van deserves the next title shot. He's the guy right now. He beat the #1 contender. I really hope at some point in the next year, maybe, calendar year, I really hope that Pantoja and Moreno are able to run it back again. I was rooting for Moreno when he fought Brandon Royval previous because I wanted to see that rematch so bad. And I really thought they should have done a rematch after the first fight because it was so close and it was so good. It was such a good fight. It's one of my favorite fights to rewatch. But right now, it's hard for me to see a world where there's anybody else that is going to be as big of a threat to Pantoja as Brandon Moreno. I still think right now those are the two guys. Now, Joshua Van can prove to be in that same class. And when I say in that same class, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the title shot. He's the next guy. He's getting it. But we got to see what happens. I mean, if Pantoja gets in there, I mean, and just takes him down, submits him easy, well, I mean. But so far, Moreno has been the only one that has been able to. And Erceg had a good fight against him too, but Moreno was able to hurt him consistently, was able to match him, and it really came down to that 5th round. And with Erceg, it was more of like, it came down like points-wise, and it was kind of a, back and forth kind of thing, but, you really kind of still felt like that was Pantoja's fight to lose, But Moreno, you really felt that like, oh man, like, and it was a split decision. It was a split decision victory for Pantoja. But I hope at some point they run that back. I really, really do. If you guys haven't watched that first fight, well, I would say the first fight, I'm sorry, the last fight between them, go watch that fight. Go watch it because it is incredible. It's such a good fight. But yeah, Pantoja wipes the floor with KKF. What more can I say, right? He's incredible. He's amazing. We'll see what happens against Joshua Van. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me a bit. If you haven't already, tap the like, hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for joining me. Next video, I'm going to be talking Topuria versus Oliveira. Stay tuned.